Hey everybody, X and EJ back in action. X has returned from his college exodus briefly.
For 1 week only.
And we're going to take advantage of that time to collaborate a little bit. We both have had...
you want to talk about Mark Henry?
No, we did enough. We did, half an hour of Mark Henry discussion?
I can't believe you want to talk about Mark Henry.
No, I'm exhausted. I was searching for more bad things to say about Mark Henry, and... I almost started feeling bad.
Yeah, I don't think any more bad things need to be said.
If he ever sees the video, I'd still want your autograph. I think you're a nice guy.
And I'm pretty sure you don't know where I live.
You can sign my cover of the PWI 500 with The Miz on it.
You don't want The Miz to sign it?
No, why would anybody want his autograph? It's not like he's accomplished anything.
He was #1.
We'll get to that in a different video.
All right.
Yeah, so... we both have had some issues with the WWE roster, of all things.
Yes. I've repeatedly said in my most recent videos that it seems incredibly thin, and they keep bringing Raw guys over to do SmackDown.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
they had a 20-man battle royal to crown the #1 contender on SmackDown, and William Regal was in it. And Johnny Curtis, that was his second match. There was a chance to
That's fair. They should have booked him to win. That would have made perfect sense.
I think the Usos were in it.
Of course they were.
I mean,
was Tamina in it as well?
Probably.
Yeah, they basically have a thin roster on both shows. This has happened before with the brand extension. It's almost something that becomes very difficult to avoid when you insist on splitting your roster into two quote-unquote equal parts. But I think now, more than any other time since the beginning of the brand extension, you are really looking at thin layers of talent at every position on the card. Honestly, I think the deepest part of the card in the WWE right now is the Divas division.
That's really sad.
Deepest.
If you
really, well, honestly though, they book all of their women to be in the hunt in some way. If it's a 6-on-6 or an 8-on-8 or a battle royal, they're all involved.
Kinda. I mean, I like what they're doing with the women's division right now more than anything else they've done recently. With Beth and Talia being like, "We're sick of this bullshit. Yeah. We can beat the crap out of all of you 6 ways to Sunday, and we're gonna do it." But no, the Divas division, I guess it's deep. I mean, as in they have. What they got plenty of.
They have 14.
They got plenty of workers here.
They've got like 12 to 14 women right now who, whenever the title comes up, it kind of feels like they all could be involved, and that speaks to the fact too that it's so superficial. The women's division is very superficial.
Yeah.
Not just because they pick women on looks, but because it literally is a week-to-week thing with the women's division. But when you look at the other divisions on the card, your world title picture on both shows, the mid card with the U.S. title and the IC title, the tag team divisions, and those are your only belt divisions that you have now in the WWE with both shows. It's very thin as far as competition, legitimate competition for those belts.
Right now, I mean, I'm looking at the Raw Superstars page here, for Raw, and they've got. First of all, this is ridiculous. Goldust is on here. I don't know if you saw that.
Does he still work?
I think he works for them, but he doesn't wrestle. Goldust and, Ricardo Rodriguez and Mr. McMahon and Jim Ross. There's
Justin Roberts has his own bio page.
There's 12 to 15 guys here who regularly work Raw. Who work. Yeah. I mean, if these are guys that I'd say there's 10 guys that are on Raw every week that are guaranteed to be on Raw every week. It's basically Cena, Punk, Del Rio. Now that Mysterio's gone, Cena, Punk, Del Rio.
Mysterio, for those who don't know, 6 months he's out with an injury.
Yeah. Morrison, Truth, Kingston is usually on the show. Ziggler's usually on the show. Alex Riley, Jack Swagger. Even Jack Swagger sometimes. So 8 guys are guaranteed every week.
Yeah, and then you've got a couple of women who seem to. Well, and the Miz even hasn't.
Forgot about the Miz.
He's been able to make it to every show in some form, but he hasn't exactly been a part of the show.
He schooled the Subway guy.
Schooled
the Subway guy the other day.
Oh man, Jared from Subway. He needs to talk more game.
In fact, he won the calorie-free championship, I believe.
The calorie-free championship. Wow.
Because he took Jared's sandwich and ate it.
We should do a video on who should challenge Jared for the, or challenge the Miz for the calorie-free championship.
It should be Mark Henry, but
I think that's probably the worst option. Ass. Just to prove our point, belt by belt, when you talk about the world title picture on Raw, the WWE title, you've got CM Punk, John Cena, and the champion, Del Rio, who honestly was elevated there because of using Money in the Bank.
And really, that's
outside of that, that's it. That's it. There's really nobody else that is being pushed in that direction. Morrison, yeah, he's a puzzling case where they were flirting with him being a part of the title picture. He got hurt. He's back now. Apparently, he's back probably too soon anyway. And they're not booking him as somebody with any momentum right now.
And Truth and Miz, they looked like they were going to push him as heels and main eventers, and they just didn't.
Yeah, they just for whatever reason decided to pull the plug on it, and not just kind of parse them to other directions. When they've been pushed, and it's been the case with almost everybody. When you receive a push and it doesn't lead to you becoming world champion, you have the carpet pulled out from under you. Kingston. Right off the air, practically. He becomes an NXT, bystander. Miz, he's got all this momentum being champion. Whatever you want to say about his championship reign, he had momentum, he had overness, and the audience was paying attention. And they just pulled the plug on it. And he's got, no direction now. They even pulled Alex Riley from him, so there isn't even that element there.
Alex Riley has more momentum right now than Miz does.
Riley's got more momentum than Miz. And then with Truth,
he has cool music, Riley.
They turn Truth, and they go through all the trouble of turning him and really making him a badass heel. And it goes nowhere. They pull the rug out from under him. He's got, no story now.
Speaking of music, he has music again now.
Does he?
I was pissed off on Raw when I watched it and he had music again. And I was like, oh, I like that there was somebody who came out to silence. But whatever.
But yeah, that's what's happening is there used to be kind of a title picture where the two current people were feuding. And then you had 3 or 4 or even 5 or 6 people who kind of lingered in the middle and would go up, or they would even step down to the IC level and they would bounce between both. Guys like Kane and Jericho, just to name a couple of people who did that pretty regularly.
I honestly think that part of the problem is that they've pulled the rug out on guys like Kingston, and they've at this point, Del Rio got into the main event position because he won the Money in the Bank. Despite that, it seems to me that they're pretty unclear as to what they want from him, because it's taken him so long to get where he is. I mean, as far as from what it looked like he was going to get.
That gets into something I think we'll talk about when we kind of discuss the current situation on the roster, and that's the week-to-week feel that things have suddenly taken on, where they caught lightning in a bottle with CM Punk, and now all of a sudden it's, what do we do with all of our elements? We suddenly have, a brand new champion, and then we've got John Cena, the stalwart, and then we've got Punk with a sudden burst of overness, and he's the hottest name in the company. And then you're bringing in a new GM, and you're also introducing Kevin Nash as a main on-screen character, and you've got all these elements. What are you doing with them? And they're acting like they honestly show up Monday mornings, not quite sure what they're going to do with these elements and how they're really making it all work.
I mean, so what? It's going to be Del Rio and Cena Night of Champions. You really see Del Rio going over?
Yes.
I mean,
we hadn't talked about this, but I absolutely see Del Rio winning.
Because I'm not sure if I see that. I totally would not be surprised if they gave me a 1-month title reign and gave the belt back to Cena. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
And it goes to the point I was going to make is that 4 weeks ago, it felt like everything was being interweaved, and creating this very intelligent, very complex story, centering around CM Punk and his quest, to start saying things that needed to be said. And now, a month removed from it, it feels like the opposite. It feels like nothing's being interweaved. What I really feel like is happening is they are creating some sort of a story where Triple H creates a regime, and I think Cena gets screwed at Night of Champions. Is what I think happens.
If they're gonna do that, then they need to do it quickly because it's taking too long to develop right now.
Yeah, they're starting to lose interest from some people.
You know, I don't know. 4 weeks ago, when the Punk thing happened, when Money in the Bank happened, I mean, I didn't really feel a lot of cohesion. I mean, when I started watching Raw again.
Well, but one of the motifs that you caught from that show, though, was that the whole show had this sense of breaking down and the injury elements, and that made it feel like everything from top to bottom on the card was serving some sort of a purpose to the overall product.
But the other thing about Money in the Bank is that you've got 2 matches with 8 people in each. So you're using all your talent to put on these great ladder matches, and they're spot fests, so they're going to be pretty good. You've got a bunch of people in there who know what they're doing, but Money in the Bank doesn't require you to build a feud.
Right.
It doesn't require you to give these people a reason to fight.
That's the other thing, though, that plays to why we're talking about this in the first place, is you had 8 people in both matches, and none of them are interacting with each other after this match. The point of having a match where multiple elements are brought in, when you have a 4-way or higher, basically, is after the match, there's the main storyline, the winner of the match, and what that carries through. And then all the other elements inside the match are supposed to leave that match having something to do afterwards. There's supposed to be grudges to be met, There's supposed to be alliances formed. There's supposed to be problem solved.
They did that somewhat like on the SmackDown one. Barrett was pissed off because Bryan won and he was about to win, blah, blah, blah,
But what do they do then? They take the winner of their match and have him lose to a loser from that match. It's just bad. It's bad decision making there, and that feels to me like week to week decision making.
Honestly, the overall feel of the product right now doesn't feel any different than it has been, except for when Punk's on screen. I mean,
yes,
and that's been what the only thing. Like, even I remember when I started watching Raw again, and I was like, wow, that was really good because Punk was on it. The rest of the show was crap.
Well, I happened to check out the last 15 minutes of Raw. It was 2 weeks ago with Cena and Del Rio faced Mysterio, his first title match after when I thought it was a pretty good match. But then Cena comes out to save the day at the end of the show and runs a promo about he's going to put down Del Rio. And I was like, this is WWE for the last 18 months all over again. And here we are just weeks removed from a fantastic feud. And it just felt like they were taking Cena and placing him over there. They're just like, we don't want this in that story now. Like, there was no fluid motion with the character.
I honestly do think they're going to bring the 2 feuds, Cena and Del Rio, and Punk and Nash and that thing. I think they're going to bring those 2 back together, probably at the pay-per-view.
That's what I'm thinking.
If you're right and that Cena's getting screwed, then it's entirely possible that somebody, either somebody related to Triple H or, maybe Sean Waltman will come out and screw John Cena. Who knows?
Mr. Ass and Road Dogg.
Sure.
I feel like that's what they have to be doing because they very suddenly, abruptly, and unjustly kind of ripped the Cena Punk elements apart.
Yeah.
Placed them at opposite ends of the show. So when you're watching Cena, you're watching, what WWE has been for the last 2 years, and when you're watching Punk, you're watching something that almost doesn't even feel like it fits on the show.
And Cena Punk worked so well.
Yes, they worked really well, and I told they really work. And I feel like they should have taken that momentum and either made them friend or foe, but kept that kind of momentum between the 2 of them going.
Yeah, sure.
Having the 2 of them compete for the title with neither one being champion, I'm into that too. And I like what they did with Del Rio. With kind of bringing him up through the middle and then having, but instead they ripped those 2 elements that were propelling him apart, and now Del Rio's a standalone champion fighting Cena.
I was prepared to like the Del Rio thing, depending on what they did the next time on Raw, but they screwed it up. I mean, I don't think they did what they should have done with it, and they had a perfect setup to move forward with Punk and Cena just fine because Triple H counted the fall for Punk while Cena's foot was on.
Exactly.
Perfect setup. The feud is not over, but that's the problem. Is that feud, that match did not sell that feud. It wasn't like this feud ends, this feud begins. their feud isn't over yet.
That kind of plays into what we're trying to say, though.
If you were weaving on EWR, you know,
yeah,
it could have ended the feud right there.
That kind of plays to what we're saying, though, is that the roster is so thin, in large part because they aren't tying up loose ends and they aren't assigning purposes to anybody. You know, this is a major loose end that they just kind of left us hanging on. And it might come around, but, you know, we've been treated this way before and been given no resolution to a lot of things.
I mean, the most
consistent... who the hell is the Raw GM, you know?
Who cares?
But they made us go through that storyline.
I know.
And they're not going to give us any kind of an answer as to what purpose that served,
In that case, I wish we just forget, WWE. Just forget you did it. If you will forget, we'll forget too.
They're giving the podium the Chris Benoit treatment, for Christ's sake. It's like the podium went and killed a bunch of people. I'm going to get a lot of crap for saying that.
But I'm surprised Michael Cole isn't like lobbying because he doesn't have to say his line anymore, you know? Like
Michael Cole wanted to stop saying lines when he started bashing, you know, using gay slurs on Twitter and was pleading to no longer be in character, you know? But, you know, enough of that. The thing is, there's the A story, B story, and then there's no story. Is what's really happening for the roster. Is you've got and we keep talking about Raw, but go to SmackDown. Yeah, go to SmackDown.
Let's SmackDown. What do we got? I mean, Orton Christian is effectively. I actually don't think Orton Christian's over. I think they're going to do one more match at Hell in a Cell. But
that would make sense considering how many matches they've already done.
Yeah, but you know, whatever. Henry's the current challenger, so Henry Sheamus is kind of over, but not really.
And here's what you've got with
Henry won that match by countout.
With the A story, you've got Orton, you know, and then you've got Cena, Henry, Sheamus, and nobody really Cena or I'm sorry, Christian, Henry, and Sheamus, and nobody really feels like they are A1. You know, it's Orton A and then BBB.
Christian hasn't gotten a clean title victory out of Orton.
And they basically booked him to be nothing more than, you know, kind of edge light.
Well, you know, I'm actually okay with what he's been doing just because, you know, he pulls it off very well. That kind of character.
No, I'm not complaining about the character at all.
I'm the only person in history to win the WWE Championship by disqualification. And I'm fine with that. This is my title, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that.
But, you know, I don't think they're... You know,
you've got no equal to Orton on Raw right now. It's Orton trying to elevate talent that they've kind of botched. You know, they've botched Christian as a talent because of how many years, you know, he has spent trying to get where he's at. They've botched Henry as a talent because he's been repackaged 1,000 times over. And he can't have a 19-minute match. No. And then you've got Sheamus, who... You know, they strapped a rocket to it maybe at 26, and then they went bipolar on him.
That's been the story of the past couple of years, really. It really seems like something in the inner workings of the company is wrong. And it's not wrong in the way that the inner workings of TNA is wrong. Because TNA, there is crack cocaine coming out of the water fountains.
Coming out of Hogan's beard.
But... You know, it's uncharacteristic.
Yeah.
It's like, why can't you stick with something? Why don't you know?
They've been so good for 30 years. The WWE has been so good at picking out talent and pushing it to the forefront. You know, Hulk Hogan, you know, was an example if you want to go way back. And then you've got people like Bret Hart who came out of the tag division and they focused on him and pushed him. Stone Cold Steve Austin,
The
Rock, John Cena, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit.
The Rock was booed way louder than anything John Cena's ever heard back before he was repackaged.
Chris Jericho was a mid-carder in another company. They pushed him to the front of theirs. You know, they've done a really good job, and I feel like they're doing that with Del Rio too. That they've taken, you know, some talent and they're pushing it to the front. But with a lot of these people, a lot of these fringe people, Kofi Kingston, Jack Swagger. Morrison.
What the hell happened to Ted DiBiase? Wasn't he supposed to be a world champion a year ago?
Sin Cara, you know, for only a few weeks. Sin Cara, you can start to say they're doing that too. Drew McIntyre,
you know, seriously.
The Hart Dynasty, you know, they push all these people up, and then they let the bottom fall out from under them.
And that's how it works.
They don't give them any purpose after the week of the blow off of their current feud.
Yeah.
They're gone. They lose a match on the next Raw, and then you don't see them again.
And that's how it's been. It's that they don't have enough guys who are at main event level because they haven't been willing to get them right.
There was a time where the brand extension was necessary because you had 6 or 7 guys on both shows that belonged up at the front.
And you don't have, and all your guys, you've got a little solid core of mid-carders who will always do what you tell them to do.
Miz,
but not really
Ziggler, Kingston, Morrison, very strong mid-card core.
Yeah. But then everything below that is
crap,
and it's totally directionless.
Yeah. And, Yoshitatsu.
They'll come up.
What the hell are they doing with Yoshitatsu?
They'll come up to a guy like Harry Smith and DH Smith, and they'll say, creative has nothing for you. Your future endeavors and all that. Apparently, they copyrighted the term future endeavor, by the way.
That's good. Good call on their part. It's going to make them a lot of money. It sounds like.
But but like he's got to be thinking. What do you mean you have nothing for me? You have nothing for anyone.
Well, I mean, look at the guys they did cut. Kozlov, nothing. Masters, nothing. Smith, nothing.
Yeah.
But
what's Heath Slater doing?
What is half of the Nexus, rubble doing these days?
There is no. The only guys, and this. I love it because this was said repeatedly. If you remember, we said it, and other people said it too. When the Nexus happened, we said repeatedly. The only people who are going to get anything out of this angle are Barrett and maybe Gabriel.
Yeah, and I said Otunga would continue to be used. I've always felt like he was going to have his job.
Yeah.
But and then you've got Heath Slater and Otunga dropping the tag titles. So they dropped the tag titles. Now what? You've got Orton in the press saying that McGillicuddy needs to change his fucking name. Like, that's the main thing with McGillicuddy now, is that when he comes on camera, the crowd's like, well, now we know you're related to Mr. Perfect.
Yeah,
you're not telling us why.
I've never understood why they didn't just call him Kurt
but there's your story right there. Make that on camera. Apparently now with Punk, everything's fair game for a storyline. Why not go that route, instead of just basically having them serve no purpose and carrying around those plastic toy-looking tag titles.
Just give us a storyline, for God's sake, at this point. It's like, instead of throwing meaningless matches up on screen every week and asking people to give
between the same guys with the same results. And I'll go back to the Divas division for this. They literally have like the same match once a month where all of them are involved, and then they'll take 2 divas who wrestle on SmackDown and then again on Superstars with the exact same result in both matches.
Yeah.
They're not going anywhere with any of this talent. It's just having, it's like watching a rerun after a while. And coming full circle with it, before the brand extension, when this company had to compete, for 2 hours, they had to compete to keep you watching.
Yeah.
People at the bottom of the card had storylines. You had, freaking Mosh, the Mean Street Posse, Spike Dudley. They had intricate storylines.
Yeah, and no matter where you were in the card, like you were saying before, everybody had something to do.
Yeah, everybody served some sort of purpose, and they would actually do a pretty good job at times. Not all the time, but at times of kind of moving people through the card too. Like, there would be people at the bottom of the card who would be featured in a segment with people at the top of the card. And it just kind of brought it all together, and you really felt like you were watching their product. But now, outside of the main event of the show, you could have a WWE draft every week. No one would notice.
I mean, it's not even like, at this point, it's not even a matter of complaining about talent. You want to use Brodus Clay? Use Brodus Clay. Put him in a feud with Tyler Rex.
Jinder Mahal.
Do something.
Do something with Jinder Mahal and Ezekiel Jackson. I don't care.
Yeah, seriously.
Two guys I could care less about watching, but if they're feuding, I at least have to acknowledge that it's out there.
Yeah.
I don't have to acknowledge any of these people.
They get something out of it.
Yeah, but for good or bad, and part of the reason why you have mid-card and lower-card feuds is to prep people for moving throughout the card,
so that at some point you can put that lower card guy with a mid card guy and have him go over, and
that's how you get people. And that's the story of Kofi Kingston. You put him in all these mid card feuds over the last 3 years, and he's gone nowhere with it, And Dolph Ziggler, what are they doing with it? Jack Swagger was a world champion for a month?
No, he wasn't. That never happened.
Whatever. He was a world champion, and now you wouldn't even know he had held a belt. You know, based on how they booked him, he doesn't even walk around go and say, "Hey, I won a championship."
It's like the only belt he's held, isn't it?
I think he was U.S. champion.
Was he U.S. champion? I don't think so.
I don't know.
I think that's the only belt he's held. I'm not sure about
But you know why I don't know? Because you don't make him relevant. He's not relevant to anything that's going on.
He just lost to Alex Riley.
You know, it's really frustrating to take any of the mid-card to low-card seriously. You know,
yeah, it really is.
There's people on their page right now. I can't tell you if they actually work for them because even if they've appeared on TV in the last month, I don't know if they actually still work there.
I'm thrilled to see Trent Beretta on Superstars.
But but they broke up the Dude Busters.
Yes, Croc doesn't work there anymore. I know. I wonder
why.
I wonder how he's going to feel when their revamped tag team division starts making its way onto television.
Yeah, and Beretta's tagging with Tyson Kidd.
Yeah, seriously.
They're going to put Beretta with freaking Zack Ryder.
Maybe DX Smith can come back with Kalen Croft and they can form a revenge tag team.
And they can align with what's his name from CM Punk's gang there that was in 1,000 tag teams before he got cut.
To put this another way, too, I mean, just think of this. When's the last time that someone turned?
Face or heel? Punk. Anything. Punk went from legit heel
that wasn't a storyline turn, though. Not at all. That was him winning the fans over pretty much himself. You know.
Yeah. But it's R-Truth.
Okay, fair enough. But
and Sheamus. R-Truth and Sheamus.
Okay, but still, I mean, that doesn't happen much. Yeah. You need to freshen some of your stuff up, man, and it's not. So
in conclusion, give us more stories. We'll be back with.
That's basically it. I mean, more stories and more Punk. I don't give a shit about Alberto Del Rio.
We'll be back with a few more thoughts on the WWE, but I'm going to go ahead and plug myself. You can follow me on Twitter at EJKaboom.